Welcome back to Grandstand Therapy. I am your host, Lori, and welcome to 2026 Formula One, and welcome to a new era of Formula One. We have new designs, new aerodynamics, new power units, new teams, some new drivers, some come back. So lots to unpack this season, and we're going to just be along for the ride for all of it. So make sure that you subscribe to this channel so that you can come along each race weekend for the ride. I think we're definitely going to need some therapy and some unpacking because we're just going to be learning each week. So let's first talk about the new designs of the cars. So we had all the liveries came out beginning of January, I guess it was. I really like the Red Bull car. I like that they brought back the shiny blue. It's kind of like a Ford blue because they do have a power unit with Ford, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I also liked the V-carb as well because I love the white wheels. They looked really great on track. Audi, I was a little disappointed in Audi, to be honest. I liked the silver and the reddish orange kind of color they have on the car. Just didn't quite like the way that they didn't curve it. It was very much just kind of cut off. Let's see. Most of the cars looked very similar to last year. We did get a new team this year, so now we have 11 teams. So Cadillac has officially joined the grid. They launched their car during the Super Bowl. That I did like. I liked that it looked very sleek. I liked the black and the white. It's very asymmetrical, so depending on where the car is on track, you might see white, black, variations of it on each side. I liked that a lot. I thought it looked very sleek. Other than that, I feel like the cars were, I mean, I wasn't wowed per se, but look good overall. The cars are lighter and smaller this year, so that we'll see how that goes with overtaking, and it's less on the track, so we'll see how that goes. And then we have new drivers back on the grid this year. So with Cadillac coming in, we have Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez coming to join that team. So those are two great veterans, two great drivers. I like to see a lot what happens with them. In this winter break, I actually have been watching 2016. Now we're on 2020 seasons. So I've really gotten to see Bottas in his prime. I mean, was amazing. Perez as well is really great. They bring a lot to the organization of Cadillac to be able to kind of figure out these cars. So it was a great move by Cadillac. Love that. Also, we do have a new rookie joining the grid this year, Arvin Lindblad. He will be joining Max Verstappen at Red Bull. Sorry, he will be joining V-carb, sorry, let me back up. So we have a new driver lineup at Red Bull. So Yuki Tsunoda left, and now we have Isaac Hadjar. He moved from V-carb to the Red Bull seat. He will be pairing alongside Max Verstappen. And then in the V-carb seat, we still have Liam Lawson, and then Arvin Lindblad. He has been moved up. He's a brand new rookie. He looks pretty solid, looking to see what he can bring to that team. All right, so that's kind of the teams. Sabre, of course, left the grid, and now we have Audi. Audi has come in, and they have been looking to get back into Formula One for a while. They bring a new spin to it and looking to see what they're going to do. We'll talk a little bit about them in the preseason testing here in a moment. So let's dive into the rules and regulation changes because that's pretty significant. In fact, did write some notes because there is a lot. The power unit is the first one. So the power unit is now 50-50, meaning 50 internal combustion engine. You will hear the word ICE referenced a lot. That's what that means, internal combustion engine. And then you have 50% electrical power. Previously, we had MGUH. That was removed. And now we have MGUK, which is the kinetic energy, and it has been increased from 120 kilowatts to 350 kilowatts maximum power. And all the cars will also be running advanced sustainable fuel this year. So that'll be interesting to see how those kind of go in. We already talked about the cars. The chassis changed. They're smaller and lighter, and also the downforce and the drag has been reduced on these cars, and therefore the tires have also been narrowed. So they're still tall, but they're narrower, not as wide. Then you have the Active Aero. So Active Aero has the front and the rear wing elements have been adjusted so that the driver can use them in designated corners, in straight mode, in sections of the track. Then we have some new, let's say, buttons. You'll hear it a lot during, I'm sure, the broadcasting of the races. You'll hear overtake mode and you're going to hear boost mode. So overtake mode, it gives extra power so they can overtake the cars. So during a race, the driver has to be within 1 second behind the car in front to utilize this overtake mode. And there will be certain detection points. It's kind of similar to DRS was last year. That's kind of how I see it. The only difference is you now have the front and the rear wings opening, which is really cool to kind of see. But the overtake mode also allows the driver to get a higher speed for a longer period of time. So think of it gives them an ability to overtake the person in front of them, basically, is what it's going to do. They will be able to use it freely anytime during practice and qualifying sessions. And you kind of would have to, because of the amount of energy you need to deploy to get those lap times. All right, then the boost mode button, that gives the driver kind of maximum power from the battery at a push of a button. And that can be used anywhere on track for both attack and defense mode. And the overtake button, it can be used along with the boost button at certain times of the race. Not quite sure how that's all going to play down. At the end of the day, I do think that they will bring up graphics throughout the race, at least in the beginning for sure, that will tell you kind of what I just told you. They'll have little boxes on the screen that will kind of tell you how the rules have changed, what they do, how they're going to use them. We don't really know how the broadcast team is going to be. That's a daunting task, first off, for the broadcast team to be able to explain to us viewers what is happening. I did watch quite a bit of preseason testing, so I'm going to kind of dive into that. But during preseason testing, they did put up graphic boxes on the screen, and then the broadcasters would kind of talk a lot about those particular new rules and regulations and how they can be used and what the drivers are going to use them for. So I do think that we're going to get that content as we're watching the races. Those of you who are new to Formula One, you're still going to be able to tune in and see great racing, and you might not even care about the different functions they'll be able to use. But for those of us who are nerded out like me, and I like to see the technical side, then I am interested to know how it's all going to play out. So let's kind of start with preseason testing. So we had ultimately we had what was called a shakedown, and that happened in Barcelona. And that was at the end of January, and it was only for a week. Each team got to choose 3 days of that week. They were going to attend the shakedown. That was going to give them the first opportunity to drive the track, to test out the cars, to kind of see how they were going to work, all these new things they have to learn. That was not televised, nor was any media allowed at that event. It was strictly for the teams to have a shakedown and kind of see how the cars were going to work. But, of course, there was a brave soul media person or two or three that would sneak up in the trees and get photos and videos and things that then got circulated and out to everyone to kind of view. So for me, I follow a lot of podcasts that are journalists or former drivers or that have been on the track or there at the track when allowed, so that I know I'm getting not the real news and not fake news. So I was able to get a little bit of that footage and kind of then dissect it a little bit down. So what we got out of that was everybody came out with their engines working for the most part. It was really kind of crazy. I mean, first off, let's talk about Red Bull. So Red Bull, they have their own brand new power unit. They've been working on this power unit for 3 years. as it evolved, it became a Ford component type of power unit, meaning Ford has added some components to it. And I think a lot of those components, it looks like, are probably the battery side of things because they excel in that. So they kind of partnered with each other. So we had the Ford Power, Red Bull Power Unit train. That we didn't even know if it would come out, but it didn't even blow up. It looked amazing. It looked great. It ran great. Everybody sounded really great. There were a few teams that didn't show up. So Williams, God help them. I'm so sorry for them. Williams wasn't able to attend the shakedown because they couldn't pass the crash test first off. And yeah, I guess there were certain things that they had to do for the FIA, which is the governing body that makes all the rules, and they did not pass those tests. So therefore they weren't allowed to attend, which really hurt them. Aston Martin was behind as well, and they did not show up and do their shakedown till the last 2 days of the sessions. And unfortunately, their car just wouldn't even do, but I think he did 3 laps. It was something like that. So they walked out of that not great either. But for the most part, the remaining teams did look pretty solid. So, all right, then we get into the real testing. So we had 2 sessions of testing in Bahrain, 2 weeks, I should say. So we had a Wednesday, the first week was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Now, as public, it was televised. It was on F1 TV. You were able to watch it. The first week, they only gave us an hour of viewing, and the second week they gave us the whole 8 hours if you wanted to watch them, and I did because I wanted to see how things were going. So let's talk about the first week. The first week, man, they get in the cars. I mean, we knew they were going to be having to learn how to use this new battery management type of situation. We had some negative Nancy, let's say, attitudes that needed some therapy. Max Verstappen, I was like excited because he put in something like the first day of lap running. He did like 300 something laps. I don't remember the specific number. Did a ton of laps. Looked great. He immediately started using plug shifting, or just downshifting, where he would go all the way down to first gear, in the corners, which was interesting. And so much so that some of the other drivers tried to kind of do that as well. Charles Leclerc with Ferrari was able to do it a little bit, and it seemed like he kind of got that going on too. But Max seemed to be the one that was kind of figuring that out. From what I understand, I'm not a sim racer, but from what I understand, when you do sim racing, that's a technique that they use during sim racing. So he utilized that, and it seemed to work for him. He seemed to get better grip coming out of the corners by downshifting, or they call it plug shifting, either way. So that was kind of crazy. And so he looked solid, and I was like, yes, because I thought that car, I didn't know how that power unit was going to be. So it kind of worried me. Ferrari looked pretty on top of it. I didn't really know how that would be either. They had a really bad season last year, but they actually looked pretty solid. So I was like, maybe this is Hamilton's year. Maybe he's not going to, have some problems. So overall, on the first day, everything looked pretty solid. Aston Martin was the only one who really did not look solid. Lance Stroll came out, I think, first, and he was barely able to get a few laps in, and they had already the car breaking down. So then we get into the second day. And so what they would do is they would switch. Most of the teams either had one driver drive one day and the next driver drive the next day, or they would split morning and afternoon sessions. We get to the press conferences on the second day, and Max Verstappen comes out. It's a bit like Formula E driving. I don't really like these kind of cars. It's a lot of management of the battery, yada, yada, yada. I was like, oh my God, hates this. He's going to retire. I mean, you could tell, like, Lewis Hamilton kind of said the same thing. He did not like the way the cars were. Some of the drivers were asked, like Charles Leclerc was asked, and he would say, like, it's not really my style, but, overall it's positive. We'll work through it. And then you've got, Lando and Russell just like, It's good. We got it. If you don't want to do it anymore, you can just retire. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. Already just the attitudes and the back and forth and the whatever and the punchiness. Man, that's Formula One for you. But as we got into the sessions, it did seem to get a little bit better each day. The second week for sure was better. I think the first week, a lot of people were shell shocked, let's call it, and they had to just kind of work through it. It is a new style of driving. They are going to have to manage their batteries. So they're going to have to harvest it when they can. And that isn't just in corners or braking. It has to be in straight mode too. There's different ways they can do it that I'm not 1,000% sure. I'm giving you the specifics of that for this podcast content. But either way, it's a lot for them to even have to process and figure out. And there's going to be a learning curve to it. And it's not what they're used to. And it's going to take time for them to get used to it. So I really hoped going into the second session that the attitudes would change. And they did. So going into the last week of preseason testing, which was last week, I believe, there was a shift. There was a lot of passing the torch, like, oh, they have Red Bull has the fastest car in the straights. Oh no, Ferrari is looking the strongest. Oh no, Mercedes is going to be the strongest engine. A lot of that, nobody wants to say how fast their car is or how well they're doing. So a lot of sandbagging going on in the desert of Bahrain. So nobody really was honest. And I don't think everybody showed their true colors. So I do think that we'll get faster lap times. Ferrari looked great, y'all. I mean, I don't even know if I can say it out loud, but I think this could be Ferrari's year. I mean, and I hope to God it is, because I don't know if Hamilton can take another year of what he was last year. That was awful to watch. Both the second week, Hamilton and Leclerc looked really, really solid. Leclerc was putting in the fastest lap time, actually. And at the end of the sessions, the final day, Charles Leclerc put in the fastest lap, which gave me hope, because I'm like, whew. Everybody else looked pretty solid. They put in a lot of lap time. We do expect Mercedes to be the leading power unit. And so we have 4 different power units. If you're kind of new to this Formula One circus, we have Mercedes, we have Ferrari, we have Honda, and we have the Red Bull Ford power unit. But the Mercedes engine is used by Mercedes, McLaren, Alpine, and I'm forgetting somebody. I have my wall here now where I can actually see the different teams. Isn't it awesome? So Williams, that's who I'm forgetting. Williams is Mercedes. Then we have Ferrari, of course, and then Haas also uses their engine, and so is Cadillac this season. So Cadillac is going to use Ferrari's engine, I believe, until 29, and then GM is going to work on an engine for them. But that's the goal eventually. But for now, it's enough for them to get their kind of head around it. So let's talk about Cadillac. Let's talk about I want to group these into like the lower tier teams, midfield maybe, and then the top 4. So Cadillac, brand new team coming in, but they had their stuff together. Their garage was well organized. They were like a well-oiled machine already, and just they're coming in for the first time. So they really worked hard and prepared and took every bit of this testing. Like, they checked all the boxes. They really did. They weren't putting in, of course, the fastest lap time, but they were consistent. They were running consistently, going through all their protocols, doing race simulating, doing qualifying sessions. They looked solid, which was awesome. So I have really great hopes for them. And if they are backed by this Ferrari engine, which looked really great, hopefully, I don't think they're going to be last by any means. They aren't coming into this season expecting to be a midfield team. They would be happy just getting a couple points, to be honest. And I don't even think that's their goal. But I do think that they will get some points, and I do think they will be at the bottom of the tier, but I do think they'll be kind of not last. Let's put it that way. Also, Audi came in new this year, and I, of course, am not there in person, but it sounds distinctively louder. And if you listen to people who were there, they said you can definitely tell when the Audi engine fires up. It's distinctively louder. The cars in general sound different this year and sound louder. And I actually get to go to the Zandvoort Grand Prix this year. I'm so excited. I'm traveling to that. It's my first away race. I did go to Austin, but I'm excited to do that. And even more so because I get to hear the new cars in person. I'm so excited about that. Also, Aston Martin. Aston Martin is really, really, really struggling. So they opted to go with the Honda power unit this year instead of Mercedes, which they had been running. They, of course, have Adrian Newey over there, which is just a genius engineer. He has won multiple world championships for multiple, drivers and multiple spectrums. And he is familiar with the Honda engine. So I thought this was going to be fantastic. But I don't know what's wrong. I don't know if they also created their own gearbox this year, Aston Martin. They have a very, very over aggressive maybe car design aerodynamically. And then also you have the Honda engine, and the Honda engine has had its issues in the past. When you have a regulation change, a big one, 2008 was one. I think 2014, they had some problems. While it was consistent with Red Bull and won max championships over the last 4 years, I mean, it is not working. They were breaking down left and right all through testing. They got barely any laps on. In fact, it was so bad that the last day running, Lance Stroll went out and did 6 laps, and then they pulled the car because they only had so many replacement parts and they wouldn't have enough for Australia first race. That's how bad it was. I don't know where they're going to be or what they're going to do. I don't know. They're not going to be able to fix the situation until probably mid-season. And even then, I don't know. So I feel awful for that because Fernando Alonso, oldest guy on the grid, been there forever. And I was really hoping that he is going to get him some podiums this season, but it's not looking very good for him. Williams is another one. Williams, also, they kind of got on the back foot. They, of course, didn't make it to the shakedown. So they did have their ducks in a row, let's say, for the start of Bahrain testing. They were ready to go and they were putting in the lap times, but their car is just overweight. It's extremely heavy. And so therefore they're not getting the lap times that they need out of it. So I don't look for them to be number 5 like they were last year, which is really sad because I felt like they've got 2 solid drivers now with Albon and Carlos Sainz. And Carlos Sainz got on the podium last year twice. So I really had hopes going into this season that they would get back up there and be like number 5, but I don't place them number 5. We're going to get into where I would place these people in a little bit, but they have some growing to do. Other than that, we really didn't see anybody's true colors, let's say. But what we did see is consistent lap times by the top 4, which are Mercedes, McLaren, Red Bull, and Ferrari. All 4 look completely solid. I do think it's going to come down to how the drivers kind of adapt to this style of battery management as to who's going to be leading the championships this year. I do think we have great reliability with all these units, which is awesome because we didn't know if we were going to have that. But I do think we do. So that's really awesome. And they're going to continue as these cars evolve. Like, I think that like the first race in Australia, we're going to see one thing, and 3 races from then, we're going to see another thing. And then 3 races from there, we're going to see another thing. They're going to continue to evolve each week. Okay, so this was really, really great. There was a couple of things that were out of the box thinking innovation. So the live teams were really innovative. They really changed the designs of the cars to be performance better, basically. The Ferrari came out with a wing midway through testing that was, so the rear wing, opens up the flap, but it was rotating around like a 360 degree roll around, like almost like a rotisserie chicken roll. It's the only way I can describe it. It came out and it was so crazy to see. And if you have not seen that, you definitely need to go and look that up. You can find it on YouTube because it was really funny to see. And I don't know if we'll see it, when we'll see it. everybody was like mesmerized, like, what is it going to do? It was upside down. They put it upside down and then it would rotate. They only used it for about 3 laps and then they took it off and put their regular wing back on, and they didn't use it the rest of testing. Fred Vasseur, the team principal, was asked if they're going to use that wing, and he just said, you know, you may see it, you may not. So I don't know when they're going to bring it. Maybe they're going to use it on certain tracks. We'll see. So that was interesting. Another thing they had to change. So one thing that will change is how they're going to line up the cars for, you know, lights out, start the race, starting grid. So because these cars, they have to, like, the turbo on it has to be boosted up and revved up, let's call it spooled up, for about 10 seconds before it can just launch enough power to get off and start the race. All the drivers and teams were really worried about how that was going to work. Like, it could be like for the drivers, like when they do the formation lap, you know, and they line up for the top part of the grid, they're going to be fine because they're still going with their engines and they can rev them enough that when the lights go out, they can start fine. But if you're 19, 20 in the back of the grid, like, you don't have enough time to do that. You don't have enough time to spool it up. So there was lots of debates and lots of attitudes about, like, oh, it could be unsafe. You know, what do you think about that? And Hamilton and Leclerc came out immediately and were like, I wouldn't call it unsafe. It's definitely, take that unsafe out of the vocabulary. It's more like, you know, I mean, you might stall out maybe, and I guess it could cause a chain reaction if somebody's in front of you trying to make a move around you. So either way, they kind of found a happy compromise. So what they're going to do is they're going to kind of add a 5-second buffer to the start. So there'll be a blue light that you'll see it and they can see it. It's a blue light around the side of the grid there that will come on, illuminate first, and that tells the drivers to start revving. That will illuminate for 5 seconds, and then the 4 lights at the top of the grid will go out, and that will be enough for them to generate enough spooling to get the turbo up. So they did practice that every end of each session during testing, and so that looks like it's going to work. The Ferrari, interested enough, was the first one off the grid because they made their turbines smaller spooling, so they immediately got off. I was like, wow. So we may see at the beginning, when drivers are first learning how to get the start right, we may see the Ferrari turn 1 immediately in front of the race if they're even grid 5 position. So that could be interesting to see. So that's kind of the most of the highlights of testing. And so I'm interested to see, obviously it's race week next week, so we're going to see how it's going to go. So the drivers and teams were able to walk away with a lot of data. Most teams got, you know, upwards of 400 laps put in per driver. Let's just say about 4 Grand Prix worth, or maybe even up to 6 Grand Prix worth of data. And that's really what they're doing. They're data gathering so they can go back and plug all this stuff in and then see what works, didn't work, where we need to adjust. I think we're going to see completely different stuff, even come Australia in a week. Some may work, some may not. So that's kind of the down low on the preseason testing. Okay, so something else, cool story to come out of this week. So I am wearing my Sparkles Williams t-shirt today. So if you did not, I think I told y'all this story last year during the podcast, but if you are new or if you haven't seen it, or even if you have seen it, it's just a feel-good story, which I'm also all about with this circus of Formula One, the feel-good stories. So a little girl, her name is Tia, she had called in to Alex and Carlos's podcast, the Williams. The drivers, they do their own little podcasts, and they typically put out one during race weeks each week. And they had this little girl call in and she did a video chat. And she said, Carlos, you're my favorite driver. If you will put a Sparkles sticker on your helmet, you will be on the podium. And Carlos said, if you'll send me the sticker, I'll wear it. So she did, and he put it on his helmet, and guess what? He got on the podium that race. It's like miracle magic. And so the cool thing is he wore that sticker on his helmet the rest of the season. And then the last race of the of the season, he actually made a whole design helmet of the colors of sparkles, which is on my shirt, which is awesome. And he said he was going to use that as his helmet for 26. Well, so I said on there, this little girl deserves royalties for that magic that happened. And they made shirts, and of course I'd have one. This is a great story. Well, so in January, Tia got to go to the headquarters at Williams, and her and her mom, and that she's a 6-year-old little girl, and she walked through the factory. She got to see a bunch of cool things. And then she sat down with James Val, the team principal, and he had the trophy that Carlos won with the sticker on it. They actually put the sticker on the trophy, and it's still on there. And James told Tia, this is the actual real trophy that Carlos won, has your sticker on it. Would you like to hold it? And she held it, and they took pictures with it. But the best moment, she comes back down to the lobby, and Carlos Sainz comes in, and she gives him a huge hug. And then they sit down to her birthday was coming. So she turned 7. And so they had a cake, and they blew out the candles together. And then Carlos was just kind of talking to her, and he said, what got you into Formula One, where you just kind of, was around and it was on and you just started watching it? And her mom said, yes, she was just around it. And she picked you. I was like, man, the tears were flowing. It was just the sweetest moment ever. I love that so, so much. So I had to bring that up on this pod, because that's what I'm all about, the feel good moments too. So I think that's a kind of get you caught up with what's going on. And I would say, I'm going to give you, for my final thoughts, I'm going to give you my predictions. And it's hard to make predictions this season, because who knows what's going to happen. They're very, very crazy predictions this year. So I think that, of course, I'm going to do it in tiers. So I do think we have the top 4: Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren. I'm going to go with Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren. Then I think you had the mid pack. I think that we're going to be surprised. I think that Alpine potentially, and Haas 5 and 6. I don't know which one, which sounds crazy to think. I think then at the bottom, you've got Aston Martin. I think beyond that, you've got either Cadillac or Audi. And then I think you have Williams, and who am I missing? I think that's it. So I think that's kind of how it's going to go in that order somewhat. For Drivers' Championship, I'm going all in, you guys. It's Max Verstappen, number 5. I'm just going all in. I have a gut feeling. There's all this chatter about his retirement's happening. He doesn't like these cars of driving. And I do know he doesn't. And I do think his contract, when it expires in 28, I'm going to be sad. But I do think that he is going to pull it out and get number 5. And I also think Charles Leclerc, it's his year 2. And then I think Russell, Orlando. I'm right there in that wheelhouse. That's kind of where I think is going to happen. I think it could be any of those 4 drivers, and I wouldn't rule out Oscar either. So it's really hard to make predictions, but that's kind of where my brain is going. So that is my predictions for the championships. As far as surprises this year, I think that we're going to see some brand new podiums for the first time. I think we're going to have an Ollie Behrman from Haas on the podium this year. I think we could end up with some of the other rookies. I think we already had one, Isaac Hadjar, last year. He did manage to get on the podium. I think he gets on podium again. I think that we could have Gabby Bortoletto from Audi. It just depends on how he adapts to that car. So we'll kind of see the pecking order. But I do think we're going to get some surprise podiums this year. And we could, just because it's battery management. So it's really, the drivers are going to have a lot of the skills to have to do this year. So that's going to be really interesting to watch. So again, thank you for joining me. I hope that you will join me each race recap. I will be posting those when we have a race weekend. So next up, we have Australia. I don't know who I'm going to predict for Australia. It might be really hard to do. I think it could be. Um, I think we're going to be surprised by pole. I think pole could be Charles Leclerc and possibly Russell and possibly Max Verstappen. And I mean, I'm not going to rule out McLaren either. I just think that it's going to take a little bit to kind of get everybody's bearings. And I think podium, I think we have Max Verstappen on the podium. I think we have Charles Leclerc on the podium. And I think we have Lando or Oscar on the podium. That's who I'm going to go with. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you after Australian Grand Prix. Bye.